What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be showing you how I edit car photos. First, you're going to want to import your photos into Lightroom. I recently shot a G-Wagon, so I'm going to use that. Once I have them imported, I'll go through them from the beginning and see which ones I like the best. For like this front shot, this one looks really good. All of my photos are shot in RAW. If it's a JPEG, the information will already be baked in, so it can be very difficult to adjust the color and you'll be very limited. So I always recommend shooting in RAW. You'll also want to make sure that you have good exposure settings. I like to keep my exposure at 0. I don't overexpose or underexpose normally. I know some people like to shoot a little bit differently. Really depends on your preference, how you like to go about editing. But once I have that pulled up, I'll go ahead and go through my presets. Presets are really good to get the baseline, but I always like to make adjustments after the fact, just because every photo is going to be slightly different. I personally use Fro Knows Photos presets. One of my favorites is Skittles or Universal Soldier for car pictures. So you can see in this photo my white balance isn't super great, so I'll go ahead and start adjusting that to a point where I like the color. So I'll usually go through and we'll check the exposure. You can play with the slider and see how you like it. With this shoot, I kind of want a darker theme. And then you can always adjust the curve. I like to put a little S curve on it, nothing too special. Then you have your options for saturation and vibrance. Some people like to oversaturate their images. I usually try to keep it fairly realistic, maybe a little bit extra for that pop. I'll usually turn up the texture just a little bit. You can go through each one of these, like the clarity. I don't usually mess with that slider a whole lot because it can start making it look a little fake. Dehaze is nice because it'll get rid of that haziness. I normally don't play with the vignette. That'll give you the either brighter edges or darker edges. If you do have distortion, you can enable lens correction. A lot of times it'll already know which type of lens you're using. I like how the photo is with the distortion, so I'll keep that the same. And then I'll go through and make sure that it's straight. I'll also make sure that it's centered. I'll just crop it the way that I think will look the best. I recommend doing the same. Trim down the sides just a tiny bit. If you do have anything you want to get rid of, you can use the healing section. I usually don't use this unless there's something that I need to get rid of. Then one of the most important parts is using masks. I'll usually hit the subject option. Lightroom is usually really good at selecting the subject, but as you can see at some points it selects a little too much. So what you'll do is you'll go over to the mask and you could subtract, and I'll use the brush. I'll just go around, clean up that edge. So once you have that mask created, then you can go make adjustments specifically for that mask. So we can brighten the G-Wagon just a tiny bit. And then the next mask I like to use is the linear gradient. So I'll usually use that towards the top. If there's a line, I'll usually follow along that line just to try to match it. And we'll bring the exposure down some. I'll go ahead and do the same with the bottom. Actually bring that up. And we'll darken that as well. So now if I deselect that mask, you'll see the gradient masks will kind of force your eyes to the center. Then once that's done, I'll go ahead and export it. So I'll usually export it as JPEG full size at 100% quality. Then you can put your custom name and it'll number each one after that. So I'll make a folder for that. We'll go ahead and export that. Then we'll continue to go through and see which shots that I like. And I always recommend being experimental with photos. You never know what angle is going to look good, so it's better to take more pictures and have a lot of bad ones than to not have enough good ones. Kind of like that one. So we'll go ahead. We'll do the same thing. Go ahead and fix the crop. There's no specific order that you need to do these things in. Go ahead and throw the preset on. Make that adjustment. I like how that one's turning out. So you'll want to go ahead and use your brush and get rid of that. If you accidentally erase too much, you can hold the options key. We can re-add that back in. Go ahead, brighten that guy up. And having really good contrast will cause the image to pop really well. So then we'll go ahead, we'll add another linear gradient. Kind of try to match that line. So once again, you'll see that the gradients will help the focus be the subject. And really that's all it is. It's a lot of trial and error and seeing what looks best for you. There's not any specific way to edit photos. There's not the right way or the wrong way. You can take it whichever step first. You can mess around with all the sliders, and I just recommend trying things out, playing with it, and seeing what works best for you. Hopefully that helps you on your editing journey. If it did, make sure you drop a comment, like, and subscribe.